So here we go, we're back in the games room, and I've been seriously struggling to get videos out and get through this backlog of games, but I've got another 12 PC Engine games for you, so a bit of a continuation on the last video. I thought I'd focus really on the PC Engine games first, because not only as I explained in the last video, it's a system I really love, got a lot of affection for. It's been an amazing sort of journey collecting for it, you know, getting those games you saw in magazines as a kid, all these games you dreamt about and getting to experience them for the first time. Not only that, but because this journey is sort of coming to an end, or pretty much has, the goalposts aren't moving anymore, so I'm not collecting any more for it. So it's a good way to just finish it off before moving on to something else. Not only that, but I can't resist playing the PC Engine games as well. It's a good excuse to make sure I go out and play the games and make a video if I've got these amazing games to play. Definitely a bit of a mixed bag of games. You've got some absolute belters in there. You've got a couple of crap games in there as well for good measure. It's always good to have a bit of crap just to show how good the other games are. A couple of games in there as well, which are kind of common games, but there were sort of stragglers on my list, so I eventually sort of picked them up. A couple of games as well that really not talked about, a bit unknown, and kind of difficult some of them to get as well. They didn't really turn up that often, for me anyway. And of course, yes, there is a shooter. Definitely is a shooter. Okay, let's start with a belter, Facet Amor. This is a cracking platformer by Soft, and first impression you probably think it's a bit of a Valis sort of rip-off. Yes, there's definitely some similarities there, but for me it got a real vibe of Ghost and Goblins, with a bit of Bionic Commando in there as well for some of the mechanics. The gameplay is actually fairly slick, but you will need to learn the special moves pretty quickly, otherwise you will really struggle, because you'll start with one weapon, which is this dagger on a chain, which you use in a multiple of ways, including swinging it around like a whip, so you can do this Bionic Commando sort of movement to get around the stage. Or you've got your special attack, which you'll sort of upgrade with different sort of gems of different colors that you sort of whip it around your body, and you'll have these projections flying out. Depending on which color gem you have, it will be the direction of these sort of projectiles. You also have a shield spinning attack, which is very useful, especially when you're traversing the levels, because there are a few cheap deaths when you're not aware where the enemy are going to be, and you sort of swing onto a platform and the enemy suddenly appears. Just like armor, if you get hit, you get knocked out of your armor into your flimsy underwear. No medieval Y-fronts here. And then if you get hit again, you will then be in your birthday suit and you die. But it's all done in good taste. There's no full frontal, don't worry about that. It's no nudity, unlike another game which I'll show later. It's a super CD, so the soundtrack's pretty impressive. Some nice cutscenes in there too. The only gripe I really got is the end of the bosses, a little bit on the easy and cheap side. Apart from that, it's a pretty fantastic game, and I recommend you check it out. Next up is Altered Beast. Now that hopefully answers the question you probably had at the beginning of the video. Why the hell is it playing the game on the super gun? Why would he do that to himself? Well, yeah, it's a bit of a nod to the fact that it was going to turn up in this video, and also a bit of a preview. I potentially will be doing a Sega System 16 video on the multi there, if I get my arse into gear. This is actually one game I already got on the Hue card, but I couldn't resist. You've got to get the CD-ROM as well. This one, such an amazing arcade game, absolutely perfect on the PC Engine. I mean, who wouldn't want to have two copies? Everyone should have two copies of this game, right? No, just kidding. This game is absolutely shite. Yes, I know, right? It's the dirty, filthy collector side of me rearing his ugly head yet again. Yeah, it was on the list. It's one of these checkbox things. Yeah, at least I waited till the last minute to get this one on the journey. It was one of the last games to pick up, because I knew no one really wanted it, so it was never going to go up in price. But I've got it, it's over, we can deal with it and move on. But one thing I do need to point out, it has got a bit of a nasty bug when you do the beast transformation, because you do need a special card with it. I think it's a specific system card. It's not working on my Dual R with the arcade card, and also on the analog Dual as well. It wasn't working by itself. Maybe you can play around with the configuration and get it to work. Next up, Bonanza Brothers. This is another Sega arcade game ported by NEC Avenue, and they released it on CD, and they did a pretty impressive job, to be honest with you. Very close to the arcade game, which I do have. It's on the Sega System 24, so I actually had the multi running on the New Net City, but I was showing Crackdown rather than this game. But there you go, yet again, another preview to a potential video I should be putting out if I get around to doing it. I think most people are familiar with this one already. They've played it on the Master System or the Mega Drive. It's a pretty fun game, a pretty simple concept. Just get in there, steal some goodies, and get out. There's a couple ways you sort of play. You either play it sort of all stealthy and sort of avoid all the traps and avoid making noise and avoid the security guards by hiding behind doors and obstacles. Or you can sort of play the game by just go all gun blazing and sort of taking out the security guards and legging it really. But this is definitely a game that's sort of best enjoyed with 2 players, because you've got the real estate on the top of the screen for the second player to sort of join you and help in the fun. So definitely recommend it as a 2-player game rather than a 1-player game. A little bit of trivia for you. Mobile Rebel did return in the arcades, but in the Sega series of action puzzle games. I think also one of the games was actually ported to the side. If you got a spare half an hour, you could do much worse than this game, especially if you've got a buddy to play with. Next up, we got Ring No Hadja, or Bullfight. This was released by Cream, and it's a Hue card, and it's one of those games I kind of struggled to pick up. I've been looking for it for quite a while. Didn't really turn up on Yahoo auctions. I did end up finding it on Suragaya. But saying that, once I did pick it up, I think I have seen a few copies floating around. It's not an expensive game, but just not that common. Not too much to say about this one. It's your classic boxing game. You get to choose your character, you get to choose your trainer, and then you get to punch someone in the face. To be fair, it's a fairly decent boxing game for the system. Okay, it's no Mike Tyson Punch-Out, or not even close to something like the Punch-Out on the Super Nintendo, but it's more to akin of something like Final Blow. The gameplay is fairly enjoyable and simple. You've got a nice array of punches and blocks to choose from. As always with these games, it's all about the timing, just choosing when to block and which punch to use against certain opponents. After you win a fight, there is a sort of training mode you go into, where I guess the selection of your trainer sort of comes into play there. Didn't quite understand what was going on there, so kind of ignored it. But yeah, there's definitely a lot more worse boxing games out there than this one. Next up is Circus Lido. This was released on HuCard by the Unipost company. One of the most striking things about this one that you will notice straight away, it comes in a beautiful packaging, nice cardboard sleeve, very similar to what they did with the Super Graphics, and a nice collector card as well, which is in English for some reason. I believe the reason behind the packaging is the fact that they tried to sell these games in bookstores rather than game stores, which resulted in terrible sales. As you can see from the gameplay footage, it's a very simple platformer puzzle where you take control over this little sort of chameleon lizard creature, feeding all these different insects to your pet Venus flytrap, which looks very similar to the plant in A Little Shop of Horrors. You need to use your little lizard tongue to not only grab the insects to feed your plants, but also to grapple different platform areas so you can sort of maneuver around in this sort of maze. You also use it to manipulate certain switch boxes, which will actually move certain platforms left or right. There's a number of different insects to contend with. You've got your box-standard cockroaches, which don't actually harm you. You can simply just grab them and swallow them and then feed it to your plant. But you've got things like the grubs, which are a little bit spiky and have like a rolling attack. And also scorpions, which actually will fire lasers at you, as they do in real life. And of course you've got little wasps as well that really annoy you and sort of fire projectiles at you. Altogether there's around 40 different levels to complete, and you've got a nice little password system as well, so you can always go back to a level of your choice if you want to go back and play it. Definitely recommend this one, it's a lot of fun. Next up is Nico Pun. Sometimes you can judge a game by its cover. In this case, it's very clear, it's a very kiddie-centric game. So I presume it's some sort of famous Japanese kids show. We've got these three main characters, one of them being this cat that looks very similar to the cat in the Banana Split show. Really, I don't know if anyone's seen that, but I used to see it reruns as a kid. It used to freak the hell out of me, those characters. And seeing this cat brought back some memories. It's a nice, bright and colourful platformer, but super easy. Reminds you very much of Wonder Boy, but much easier. It's designed for kids, really. You go from left to right, jumping over enemies, collecting fruits, and there's certain type of fruit you need to collect, 3 of the same type, so you can feed your little pet dinosaur at the end of the level. If you don't collect all 3, then unfortunately you need to redo the level. Otherwise you will feed him and you'll move on to the next level. Along the way you'll find these little rooms that actually are little puzzles, little sliding puzzles. So this is really ideal for kids. They'll really enjoy this one. Not really for adults. You'll get a little bit bored of this one. You'll complete it in 2 seconds. Even I completed this one. So if you've got kids and you want to get them into some sort of simple platformer games, this is a perfect place for them to start. But if you're like me and you were mentally disturbed by the characters from the Banana Split show, probably avoid this one because it may induce some flashbacks. Next up is Far East of Eden, Bomberman. I wasn't even going to attempt to do the proper Japanese pronunciation of this game. I'll leave that to the experts. But basically, yes, it is a reskin of Bomberman with Far East of Eden sort of characters in it. Not too much to say about this one really, apart from the fact that it is a sort of battle mode. So word of warning, you can't actually play against the CPU. You need to play against physical opponents. So unfortunately, when I was actually capturing the footage for this one, I was on my Todd, so I was fighting myself. Very quick battle, not very interesting at all. So yeah, avoid this one if you're a believer, no mates. You do need to have friends to play this one. Again, it's one of these things that's just nice to have. It's a bit of a novelty really, and I believe these weren't actually sold in shops, they were just like given away as part of these summer caravan tours in Japan. So again, it's nice to have a little bit of history. You know, I'm a bit of a sucker for these kind of things. Again, the dirty, filthy collector in me again. But if you're a big Far East of Eden fan, this is definitely for you. Now for something completely different, Street Fighter 2. This was a hookup by Games Express, who are famous for these unofficial adult themed games on the PC Engine. They did a lot of like strip poker type of games, or Strip Mahjong, even dating sims like Body Conquest 2, and they turned their attention to fighting games and did this adult parody of Street Fighter 2. So obviously that's why I picked this game up, is because I wanted a good fighter on the PC Engine. Nothing to do with the fact that it's an adult themed game. If you've got one complaint about the PC Engine library, I would say there's not enough fighters on it. So it's always good to have one more fighter, even though it's a bit of a novelty. And to be fair, I was really pleasantly surprised at how good this one plays. The gameplay is really responsive and it really feels like a proper fighting game. You've got enough special moves in there as well to keep you occupied. But let's face it, that's not the selling point. The selling point was really the strip factor and sort of quirkiness of some of these attacks. And yes, once you beat them first time around, they take off the clothes, exposing lingerie, and then you beat them completely, then you'll see them naked. Purely for research, I did want to see the game just to see what would happen, and you just get a collection of all the different videos. Definitely an interesting novelty game. Next, Rally Championship. This was released by Intex on Super CD, and it's another one of these games that I really struggled to find. I've been looking for it for some time. Eventually I did find it on Suragaya. Again, it's one of these games that's not particularly expensive, but just not particularly common. This is your classic sort of rally overhead driving games, very much in the vein of Drift Out, but there are some significant differences as well, which I'll get to in a bit. All your bog standard rally cars are in there, as you expected. You've got your Subarus and your Celicas in there, and of course, as you go along, you can upgrade the sort of engine, your brakes and steering and so forth with your winnings that you get from your different races. But the big difference is you've got two main modes to it. You've got this sort of speed rally mode and you've got this adventure mode as well. The high speed rally mode is basically the rally split into different legs. Each leg remains pretty much in point A to B vertical sort of track with the obvious sort of left turns and right turns in there too, but it's still pretty much fairly vertical. This is definitely the mode I preferred and would go back and play. The other mode is the actual adventure mode. Rather than having a straightforward track, here it's kind of like driving in a maze, and it gets really annoying and frustrating very, very quickly. You're really not sure where you're going to go. You're not going to be able to memorize it. A little bit frustrating. I definitely enjoyed this game, but I just preferred there was something in between of the two different modes that would be a little bit more close to something like Neo Drift Out. But overall, this is a decent overhead driving game if you like the genre. Time for a little bit of footy. We've got J-League Greatest 11. This is actually the first of three different games I'm going to show you from the legendary arcade company that is Nichibotsu. Gotta admit, I'm a huge sucker when it comes to a good arcade footy game, and this one of course is based on the Japanese Football League rather than the normal international ones that you get with international teams and players. I don't know too much about the J-League. Just remember Gary Lineker playing at Grampus 8, and of course I remember Shinji when he came to Man U. Apart from that, I don't know the players, but it's not really that important when it comes to these games. What's important is the actual gameplay itself. And unfortunately, it's one plays like an absolute dog. I really could not get on with this one at all. And I think this came out in '93, and there was so many good footy games out at that time, and this one just feels so dull and boring. And my God, the music absolutely drove me crazy. So annoying. Now, if the dull, uninspiring gameplay wasn't enough to really push me over the edge, well, the game actually commits one of the greatest sins you can in a football game, and that is when you score a goal, there is no freaking celebration. There is nothing better when you score a goal and your player is celebrating with the roar of the crowd, winding up your opponent. Instead, it goes to a blank screen, but at least I guess the music stops. Safe to say, I don't recommend this one. Next up is F1 Circus 92. This is actually the fourth game in the series. So they actually released F1 Circus and F1 Circus 91, both on Hue Card. They did move to CD-ROM afterwards with the F1 Circus Special Pole to Win. And this one is back on the Hue Card, and this one is by far the best game in the series. In fact, this is probably, in my opinion, the best overhead racing game on the PC Engine. Why is this game so good? Well, if you're into your F1, you're going to be absolutely blown away by the sheer volume of features in this game. It is absolutely jam-packed. It's got all the teams, it's got all the tracks, all the drivers, all the adjustments to your cars you would expect, and also the race day as well. They make it really feel like a proper race with all the qualifications and test runs. It is absolutely incredible, a real wet dream to any big F1 fan. And of course, it's not just about the features, the actual gameplay itself is incredibly fast and responsive. You find yourself engrossed and hypnotized by the pure speed. You know, you practice the tracks, memorizing them, and you feel that if you make a mistake, it's pretty fair. You know you're the one that screwed up and got the wrong speed. Okay, it's never going to knock Neo Drift Out for the top spot for me, but if you like your F1 and overhead races, then you've got to give this one a go. You won't be disappointed. Last but not least, we have got the shooter I promised you. It is Terra Cresta 2, Mandela's Counterattack. This came out in HuCard, and of course it's part of the Cresta series, which is absolutely steeped in history, going back to the dawn of shooters in the arcade. Before I get into the game details, I'll just say the game's got a couple of modes, including a couple of caravan. You've got a 2 minute and 5 minute. So what I'm going to do for the actual gameplay footage is I'm going to do the 2 minute challenge rather than breaking up the footage. And you can see how I get on, and I encourage you to get the ROM and give it a go. Especially if you like shoot 'em ups and you like caravan games, then give this one. It's a really fun 2 minute challenge, and I'm sure you'll be able to beat my score. This is actually the third one in the series. The series started with Mooncrester in 1980, really like a sort of Space Invaders sort of game. And then in 85, the first Terra Cresta came out, and then this one came out around 92. It is also an exclusive to the PC Engine. What's cool about the game is you can actually change your formation of ships. So basically you start off with a little pea shooter ship, and as you go along you pick up these sort of sections which obviously make you power up, but also if you press the B button you'll then separate the ships into a formation for a short period of time. And you can actually go into the settings and change the sort of position of the different ships in the different formation depending on how many ships that you've got in one time. It may not be the best shooter on the system, it's still fast and furious and a hell of a lot of fun. And this shows you why shooters are so good on the PC Engine. They just play so well. I think the series gets a lot more respect in Japan than it does in the West. I think the original Terra Cresta was a lot more popular in Japan, as seen by the love that it got recently by Platinum Games, who released Soul Cresta. So there you have it, there's my absolutely abysmal attempt. It may not be the best shooter on the system, but definitely worth your time, and definitely give the caravan mode a go. So there you go, another stack of PC Engine games to strike off the backlog list and to stick on the shelf, never to be seen or played again. Just kidding, there will be a few games that I will be going back to, and probably a few games that I will never touch again. I don't think I'll be touching Altered Beast anytime soon, certainly not the CD version. And yeah, there's a couple of games that I definitely will be playing soon. F1 92, I'll be going back to that one. Also Terra Cresta, of course, I'm going to be playing a lot more of that one, especially the caravan mode. And Faster and More, I had a lot of fun playing that one. I'm going to put more time in that one too. As always, thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. Hope you got something out of it, and hopefully there's a couple of games that you want to check out and play. And I hope you have a go on Terra Cresta 2, do the caravan mode, and let me know how you get on with your scores. And yeah, thanks and laters.